What's up, everybody? It's James here from the Sawyer Family Reviews channel, bringing you another toy review. It's another Ninja Turtle review. It's another Last Ronin review. Today we're taking a look at the Playmates Toys Previews exclusive Last Ronin figure. Now we've already looked at the DeFoot Toys Custom Last Ronin. We've already looked at the NECA Toys Last Ronin, as long as that video went up before this one. And now we're taking a look at Playmates version, official version of Last Ronin, which is a previews exclusive. I've already talked multiple times about the Last Ronin story. It's set in the future. There's only one turtle left. It's a story of revenge. It's really fun. It's maybe not got the strongest ending in the world, but it's a really fun series with a really cool design for this final turtle. So getting an in plastic version from two different companies is awesome. Having a storyline in comics and immediately getting, well, not immediately, but pretty soon after the story ends to get a toy of it, it's pretty awesome. And as I was reading the series, I kept thinking, like, man, I would love a figure of this. I would love if a company would tackle it. And two companies tackled it officially, along with the custom stuff. So is this Playmates version worth picking up? If you already have the NECA version, or if you strictly collect old school Playmates, where does this guy fit in? Let's take him over to the review table and let's find that out. Okay, as always, let's start with a packaged look at the figure first. The Playmates Last Ronin Previews exclusive figure carries forward the same kind of motif that the NECA Last Ronin had, with that black and red style packaging that is evocative of the comic itself, with these white tear lines all around, sort of ripping away and showing images underneath. We've got a shot from the front cover there of the Last Ronin turtle up top, and then we've got another shot of the Last Ronin turtle here. Your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Last Ronin logo down below. I really like the way they've made this kind of tear thing go down onto the bubble. I think that's really neat looking. That's good packaging design. Nice red background there. The figure's all laid out so you see all of his accessories. Another image of the Last Ronin turtle along the side. This one carries forward from the front. Last Ronin logo at the top there. Previews exclusive logo as well, because both of these, both the color version and the black and white version, are previews exclusives, which I'm not sure. Yeah, they have. Playmates has done previews exclusive turtle stuff before. And then the back of the box again features that classic cover image of the Last Ronin turtle and a write-up that I will now read for you. In a destroyed, battle-ravaged New York City, a lone surviving turtle embarks on a hopelessly dire mission quest to avenge the family he lost. I feel like that's a typo there. Mission quest? I don't know. That seems like it's both the same thing. Having to infiltrate the zone within the walls of the Foot Clan-controlled New York City, he steals, fends off cycloptic mousers, and battles his way through the city, never losing sight of his mission to get revenge on the man who allegedly murdered his brothers, Oroko Hiroto, the grandson of Shredder. And then we've got down below, there's some things where it says, Nick.com, TMNT, PlaymatesToys.com, TMNT Toys on YouTube, TMNT Play on Facebook, all that stuff. They're really promoting their social media. It's kind of fun. All right. It's cool packaging. I like that it's collector-friendly. You just cut a couple pieces of tape and you can put them back in there. So that's fun. With this being so Playmates-esque, though, like this, we'll get into it when we get the figure out, but the scale is obviously more meant to be like the vintage Turtles toy line as opposed to some of their classic collection stuff. That's what it feels like to me, at least, and you'll see that when we get to the comparisons. I kind of would have liked to seen a carded figure, even though I like collective-friendly packaging, a packaging that's more like the old classic Turtles, that this kind of feels like it's supposed to fit in with, might have been cool. Maybe a carded figure inside a box would have been something neat to do. Kind of like they did those Motu commemoratives back in like 2000, where they had those carded figures inside of a deluxe packaging. I don't know. It's still cool packaging. It's still nice. But who cares? Let's get him out of there. Actually, before we start taking a look at the figure out of the package, I wanted to talk to you guys about the black and white variant first. So out of every case of 6 of these, there is one chase variant of the black and white version of the Last Ronin. Now, I don't plan on opening this, so I'm just kind of showing you the packaging for it, because I don't really feel like I need to have a loose one on display, since it's kind of what I call a gimmicky figure. But there is enough differences here that we should probably take a look at the boxes and kind of explain what's happening. So on the black and white version, all of the art is different. So the art at the top panel is different. The whole box is obviously black and white. Art's different here. Art's different there. Art's different down below. And the art is much different on the back of the box. Sorry about the glare there. So overall, the entire packaging is different on the black and white version. Now, why did they do a black and white version? A lot of people have said, well, you know, Last Ronin is not a black and white comic, so it kind of doesn't make sense to do a black and white version. But I think what they're doing here is, I'm going to kind of bring this guy in, is trying to capture the Kevin Eastman flashbacky type sequences, which were more of a black and white, almost a sepia type look. So I think that's what they're going for there, and they're just, you know, kind of playing off of the Mirage comics being in black and white Turtles comics, that kind of stuff. It is a really nicely done black and white version, especially for Playmates. All these little tiny black lines painted everywhere on here, or tampoed on, whatever you want to call it. They're really nice and clean. It's a very, very nice paint job, especially for, like I said, Playmates. It's fairly solid. If I had an opportunity to get another one at close to retail, I would definitely get a second one to open. But since this figure is kind of tough and I really don't need to have one on display, I'm just going to keep this guy in the box. But I did want to show him to you so you can see what the differences are between the two before we move on to the standard release figure. Which actually, let's start with the accessories. That'll be easier. So here's all the accessories that are included with the Playmates Last Ronin figure. He's pretty loaded up. Like, there's a lot of accessories with this figure. So the one I don't have on there is this katana, which I'm kind of use as my little pointer thing there. It's got a silver blade, blue handle, gold accenting. And actually the blue handle has a bit of a dark wash to it, so you can kind of see the lines in there. Again, like I just said with that white version, the paint is pretty decent for a Playmates figure. They definitely spend a little extra on this one as opposed to some of their mass market Turtles figures, which a lot of times are really, really light on paint jobs. Also included is a broken version of this same katana. So you got a broken blade piece and then the bottom part with the jagged edge there. There are 4 ninja stars, 2 of this kind and 2 of sort of that more swirly kind. Those cannot fit in his hand, and I don't think they fit anywhere on his belt, so those are just kind of at his feet. Then we've got this wrapped up cord with a grapple, which is really nice. A pair of sais, a pair of nunchucks, which have like a gray painted band around them, and then a bow staff with a silver band in the middle. That's a little warpy from being in the package, but I think all of this stuff would straighten out. Like the katana's a little bit bent, but all of these things would straighten out under some hot water. Pretty impressive. Again, this isn't like NECA quality on the accessories. It's not McFarlane quality or whatever. It's Playmates toys. But for Playmates toys, they're pretty nice. Pretty nice. Let's get him all loaded up, because he does have accessory storage on the figure, which, as I said in the NECA Ronin review, I'm a big sucker for. So let's get him all loaded up. Okay, he's all loaded down now. It's a good amount of weapon storage. He can't store everything, but he can store a really good amount. So the backpack piece, or whatever you want to call it, this hard plastic piece that's permanently attached, and you can actually see that ring thing is sculpted on there. It's not painted, but that ring piece that's on the front cover, it's on the back of the package of the regular figure, is sculpted on there. It's just not as obvious as it is on the NECA figure. So this piece here has a hollow bit there that the bow staff slides into. It's a very tight squeeze, especially when you get to this silver wrapping. I don't know if that's going to cause some paint wear over time or not, but it is very tight to get that down inside there. And then we store a katana blade there. There's a loop here where you can store one of the sais. This grapple piece is actually attached when you get the figure. It's already on inside the packaging, but it just has a small post, and that plugs right onto there. So you can take that off or put it on or whatever. Then there's another loop up front here, which is where you would store the other sai. I just wanted to show you, though, that he can do that sai pose that Raphael traditionally does. And no, I am not saying that the Last Ronin is Raphael. I'm just saying that that's how Raphael holds his sais. So you can do that longer prong in the middle of the 2 fingers there. And since he has a hinge on the wrist, it can kind of hinge in as he's holding it. So that's pretty nice, especially, again, for a Playmates figure. That's kind of unexpected. The weapon that he cannot store on his belt or on his backpack or whatever are the nunchucks. So you could either maybe have him dangling off of something or have him hold one to get both pairs on there, but there's not a really great way to store the nunchucks on him. So in my case, I'm probably going to have him displayed with one pair of chucks and holding the broken katana, and just leave the other pair of chucks out of there. I guess I should say again that he can't store the ninja stars on him anywhere. There are no posts or any places to put ninja stars. They just kind of sit on a shelf. And that's about it. All right, let's get all this back off of him, and then we'll take a look at his articulation. So he has articulation at the ankle that hinges back and forth. It's very restricted, though, due to this shin pad and the way the ankle hits in the back, the heel. So it only goes back and forth just a little bit. It does have a swivel on a sort of angle, so that way it can kind of swivel around just a little bit. You can get it to go up and down a little bit more by doing that swivel, but then you get some really awkward looks as you're doing that kind of stuff. So there's not a lot to do with that ankle. Again, though, we're not talking about Figuarts here. We're not talking about even NECA figures or Marvel Legends or any of that stuff. This is a Playmates turtle figure, which they are not known for doing a great job of making articulation that looks good and works. This one's a step in the right direction for Playmates, I would say. That some of this articulation works pretty decently, and the fact that they put so much into it is at least showing that they were trying with this figure. So then we've got a double knee joint, and if you do the bottom one first, you get a little bit more movement out of it. Actually, you know what? I just snapped the knee pad piece. So there's a knee pad piece that goes around this knee, and it actually is a separate piece. And when I went to articulate that all the way, you see it kind of snapped the back of that knee pad. It's not a big deal. It's not going anywhere, but do be careful. But it does make it so that the joint moves a little bit better. You get more of a range out of it by doing that. I gotta push it back together there. So then we've got a hip joint that's sort of a barbell mounted inside the pelvis. So it has a ball on each side, and it sort of rotates around on those. But with this skirt piece, there's not much movement going out. There's a pretty decent amount moving forward and moving back. There's a pretty good range there, but going out, there's not much. Then we've got a waist swivel, which is restricted by this clip back here. So you get movement that'll go to his left, but going to his right is hindered. It's stopped right there by those two hitting each other. We've got shoulders that hinge out, and they hinge all the way up to there, which is pretty nice. And then they rotate all the way around. We've got a double elbow joint, which can crunch to about there. Then we've got wrists that swivel, and then they hinge in and out. And then the head is pretty much just a very, very light, very, very small swivel back and forth. It feels like maybe it would go up and down. Yeah, it goes up and down a little bit. So you can kind of get his head set further back in there, which looks pretty neat. Yeah, I didn't realize it could go back that far until just now. So you can set it further back inside that mask, which makes it look a little cooler, as opposed to being so forward like that. Yeah, that looks way better, push back like that. And this hood piece is actually separate. Like these two shoulder pads and the hood are all a separate piece. I can't see any way to get that off of the figure without heating up, maybe popping off the head and then putting it back on. Yeah, because I don't think it'll just pop off. I'm going to break something else on this guy. Yeah, I can't see a way without heating it up that would come off of there. So again, for being a Playmates figure, it's got a good amount of articulation, and a lot of it works pretty well. Some of it's pretty restricted, but like the elbows are pretty decent. The wrists are good. The shoulders are good. We get a little hindered down here by the skirt piece, but overall, it's not bad. It's not bad for a Playmates figure. Okay, I want to bring in some size comparisons, and I'm going to try and keep him on this thing. He's such a short figure that I had to put this riser on here because I couldn't get my camera down low enough to catch him all, because he is a very short figure, which is not something I expected when I first saw pictures of him. Let's bring in this ruler here. He only stands right at around 4.5 inches at the top of his hood. So he's a pretty small guy, and I think that they were definitely going with having him be in the same scale as the vintage line, which is an interesting take from Playmates, because I don't know the last time they did a new figure that was in scale with the vintage line. So that's kind of interesting. You could almost get him squatted down a little bit. If these ankles had a little bit more forward, you could almost get him squatted down into like a vintage turtle pose even. But his ankles are a little bit restricted to the point where you can't get him all the way like this kind of pose. You couldn't get him forward enough to do that kind of pose. But this figure and this body style and all this articulation, it reminds me of what Mattel was doing with Motu Origins. By adding all this articulation into like an older sculpt, I could kind of see Playmates, this might be sort of a test, it feels like, of doing vintage style figures with more articulation. It kind of feels like that. It feels like this is maybe a stepping stone to them doing their own sort of Motu Origins line, but with the Turtles property, like a Turtles Origins line, which I would kind of dig. If the price point was right, I'd be down for that. It's not going to replace Super 7 in my eyes, but it would be fun to see those on like vintage card backs, like the Origins line is for He-Man. That'd be pretty cool. But right now, he fits pretty well with the vintage line. Like, I'm going to display him with my vintage figures, and I think he'll fit in just fine. I'm going to show you something else, though. I will say that the sculpting, while really good, I think it's maybe a Paul Harding sculpt. I can't remember for sure. And I don't think it actually credits on the box either. I want to say it's a Paul Harding sculpt. I could be wrong. I apologize if I got that wrong. I do feel while it is a good modern style turtle figure, I feel like the DeFoot Toys Last Ronin did a better job of making a Ronin that would have actually been in the vintage line, as it would have appeared in the vintage line. I think they did a slightly better job than, well, not slightly better. I think they did a much better job of capturing that. But again, this is still a fun mass market figure, and this is a custom run figure. And I'm sure Playmates had edicts on how certain things were to look. They probably wanted it to look more like the comic and less like a vintage Playmates figure, whereas the DeFoot Toys version is embracing that craziness of Playmates. So we'll get this guy out of the way. I'm going to bring in, and I'll probably have to move stuff back to get it fully in. Yeah, or I'll have to take off this riser thing. Let's push that back. So here he is next to the NECA Toys version. We've already seen that when I did the NECA Toys comparison. Obviously, if you're wanting one that looks dead on the comic, you should get the NECA Toys version. If you want it more of a classic-y Playmates, Toys type of take on it, then this guy will fit the bill. The one thing I will say, though, is that this figure retails for like $30. That's a lot for this guy. Not when you can get this guy for like another $10. I would spend the $40 and get this guy as opposed to getting this guy. This guy should be like $20. This guy should be $40. And this guy should be $20. Now, a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that it's a previews exclusive line. It's probably less of a run. There's not as much to go around. It's a one-time sculpt for Playmates. Well, 2 times if you include the black and white version. So that's probably how they're justifying that higher price point. It's a special run figure based on a comic. They're not going to get those mass market numbers out of it from brick and mortar retail or whatever. So it is what it is. If you're a big Last Ronin fan and you just want one figure, get the NECA version. If you're a big Last Ronin fan and you want to get multiple versions, get this guy too. If you're a big fan of the vintage Playmates Turtles line and you like that aesthetic more than something that's super realistic, this guy might fit the bill for you. All right, that about wraps it up. Oh, I do want to say about the paint. The paintwork, I've said it before on the accessories, it's pretty decent for Playmates. Like, it's pretty good. There's like a paint wash on the legs. They actually painted his hands as if they were gloves, which is cool, instead of just doing the same green. There's a dirty wash on the face, like he's actually dirty, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. There's a lot of stuff that's just not painted at all, like the black hood is not painted, the torso's not painted. So all that stuff could probably use a nice gray wash, but again, if they're trying to evoke maybe the classic Playmates feel, it wouldn't have as many paint apps. So it's kind of a double-edged sword as to having a highly detailed figure with a lot of paintwork, or trying to match that vintage Playmate style. All right, that's about it on this one. I'm going to leave a link in the info section to order him off of probably Entertainment Earth. I think that would probably be the best bet if you decide you want to get one. If you like the videos, like, subscribe, notify. Leave a comment down below and let me know which Last Ronin you are after. Let me know what you think about that idea that maybe this is a stepping stone towards a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Origins line, like the Motu Origins line. I kind of feel like it might be. And if you would buy that, if you'd be down for that. All right, I'm going to sign off on this one. See you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye.